Welcome to Two Doulas and a Midwife. Back again for the exciting journey of pregnancy and birth. Joined again by Danielle and Sharon as Two Doulas and a Midwife. We're very excited to, we've gone through the whole process of the birth, the labor, the birth, having a doula with you. And now we're going to just talk about if things don't go according to textbook. So when to call the midwife. What are we looking at when we're concerned, what to be concerned about in labor and also with birth? What if we do end up with a C-section? How does that look? So we're going to be speaking to Sharon about what phone calls does she want to get to know that, okay, we need to take this a step further. So Danielle, welcome. You can just have a quick hello, and then we're going to dive straight into it. Sharon, just take it away and tell us about those things in labor that you get concerned about.
Thanks so much, Lisa. And, I think this conversation also, goes for doulas as well, especially with the moms that aren't able to birth with an independent midwife. If they're birthing at a hospital, whether it's a government facility, a private facility, you don't necessarily have the ability to just, call up your gynae and say, hey, I think I might be leaking amniotic fluid, or I think I'm having contractions, and oftentimes if you phone your maternity ward and you say, I think I'm leaking amniotic fluid, they're going to tell you, well, then you have to come in. So, this conversation is very much, if you have a doula with you, you can also use that opportunity to call your doula and say, I actually think I might be leaking amniotic fluid, or I'm seeing some blood. Is this normal? Is it okay? Should I be concerned? And so Sharon will dive more into that. So we can very much attribute to these kinds of phone calls to your doula as well. So Sharon, what kind of, if, sometimes we find our clients are like, I don't really know if I need to phone Sharon. It's 3:00 in the morning. Do I want to wake her up for something silly? What is your, your kind of go-to almost about when your clients should phone you?
Well, I think that, first of all, it's very seldom is it a startling, shocking event. And I think that what mums have to know is that when you are with a midwife from the start of your pregnancy, then we're monitoring the whole pregnancy all the way through. So we are reassuring the mum that she is healthy, that her blood pressure is normal, that her pee is healthy, that she doesn't have any sign of infection, that she doesn't have any sign of disease in her pregnancy. And so if she had anything like that, we would be managing the disease before it becomes startlingly shocking. So these things evolve gradually. And when midwives, as we do, work hand in hand with obstetricians, then we are sending our mums to the obstetrician when we discover that something is going awry, and the obstetrician is fixing whatever needs to be fixed, and then sending her back to the midwife. And so we're working hand in glove always with medical support and backup. And so very rarely then do we have drama. What we do have is labor. And so we need to encourage, because midwives very often, not all of us, but some of us, teach antenatal classes. And my classes are a set of 8 classes. It's over 8 weeks, and each class is 4 hours each. And so each couple, therefore, has a great deal of information about what is normal and what do they need to pay attention to. And exactly like you said, Danielle, you're so sensible all the time. I love listening to you first. what happens is always at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Because according to Shakespeare, that is the time of the 24-hour clock when the spirits walk. So it's the time of day when the soul enters the world, and it is the most common time of day when the soul leaves the world too. And so that is the magical time. Mums will notice that they are up naturally at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and pee. Why? Because that is the most important breastfeeding time for a baby. And so nature is making sure that she is on automatic pilot at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not novel for her to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's not novel, words, for the midwife to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And because we have been doing this, apparently I haven't been doing this for 37 years. I've been doing it longer. I worked it out on my fingers the other day. And so it is not unusual for a midwife to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it is unusual for somebody to make a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so it helps for them to reassure themselves that this is a call that needs to be made. Because if she is not sure if she's having contractions, then she's not having contractions that need to have attention paid. If you are not sure if you have backache or you're not sure if you have a sore foot, then you don't. That's quite simple. Labor contractions are, of course, going to fold you over in half and take your breath away. And so you don't need the microscope to look for them. You don't need to study to wonder if this could be a labor contraction. If it is a Braxton Hicks contraction, then you want to enjoy those. You want to celebrate those because look at me, I can contract. And when they are so strong that they are rhythmical and regular and powerful and coming every 5 minutes, then you can start to pay attention to them. Until then, they're building up towards every 5 minutes. And so that's exciting. So there are 4 things that I would like to be phone called for at 3 o'clock in the morning. I do not want to have WhatsApp messages at 3 o'clock in the morning. We do not send a WhatsApp message to the fire engines and the fire brigade to say, I think I've got a little fire going in the kitchen. It could develop into burning the house down. I don't know yet, but I just want to let you know that the gas tank is aflame. That's not a good thing. We need to have a conversation about what you suspect might be happening. So there are 4 things that you need to phone me for at 3 o'clock in the morning. The first is if you are ever worried about the baby, if you are ever concerned about the baby, you phone, because we can save that child's life based on maternal instinct. And women get all funny about that because they think that I'm not really a mother yet, so I don't have a maternal instinct. It is something that needs to be developed. But no, it isn't. It is something that is built in. And if a mum ever, 24 hours a day, ever is concerned about her baby, she phones. Because if it's during the day, she can nip in to my rooms and I can have a listen into the baby with the sonic aid, and I can reassure her that her baby is fine. She was just off the boil, or she wasn't concentrating, or maybe she was at work and the baby had a quiet time and was sleeping at an unusual time. But from 28 weeks, my mums are doing um, kick charts. So they are tuning in, they are journaling, and so they are exploring the relationship that they have with their passenger on board. And so they're looking to see what are the things that they do that make the baby respond, first of all. And if they were doing those things and the baby wasn't responding, then they can do more aggressive things, like force themselves to have a spoonful of honey or a piece of chocolate. And if the baby then is still not responding to that, they can take a can of something fizzy, not drink it, obviously, because that would be very bad, but to take a can of something fizzy, sit it on their bump and open it. And it gives the baby such a dramatic shock with that through the belly that she'll get all sorts of response then. And then she knows if the baby was fine. So she has a way of, first of all, checking her own self. And if she is still unsure, then of course she will telephone the midwife. And if it's the middle of the night, then of course at 20 weeks, she has booked her bed in the hospital for any kind of drama. My mum's book Park Lane, first of all, at 20 weeks, and then they book their go-to place at 36 weeks when they have had the all clear from the obstetrician. And therefore, we know that the all clear is given at 36 weeks. And so we are dealing with low risk, healthy mums who are heading for low risk labors. So, ever worried about the baby is the first thing. The next thing could be blood coming out of her personal regions. Now, I always tell this story in my classes about this mum who called. So in the UK, we had a flying squad, an obstetric flying squad, where we had an ambulance and an anaesthetist and an obstetrician and a midwife and a pediatrician and all the equipment you can imagine. And if somebody phoned in a farmhouse somewhere in drama land, we would all get our kit in the ambulance and off we went. And this mum was out in the outskirts of Aberdeen in a farmhouse, mud everywhere, mud, welly boots up to your knees. We were traipsing through this field because he had phoned to say that his wife is pregnant and that she's bleeding. So off we went. We had the kind of equipment we could do a cesarean section on your kitchen table if necessary. So off we went. And we got to this farmhouse eventually in the middle of the night, and she's sitting at the kitchen table doing this. So blood coming out of your personal regions at any time in a pregnancy is never normal and can be the placenta. And so that is a phone call and it is a drama, and we will always send you in to your obstetrician to get that checked out. However, if at the end of a pregnancy,
Sharon,
somebody says,
yes,
Danielle, put your hand up, please.
And Sharon, I think also to reiterate to the moms that when we talk about blood, we are talking about blood pouring, red blood pouring out.
But not pouring, not necessarily pouring, just running down the leg. So that's the bit that I was coming to, because at the end of a pregnancy, it can be galoopy, like mucusy. And what mums, again, are confused about is what is mucusy. And mucus, any kind of mucus, snot is mucus. So if you can play with it and it's tacky, like if you were ever checking your cervical mucus to see if you are ready for making a baby, or if you've ever seen a child with snot running down their face, that is jelly-like and it is substance-like, and it's not liquid. So liquid blood running down your leg. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if it's running down your leg and it's not stringy and dropping and splatting, then that is, we need to get the placenta checked. But if it is tacky and it's just getting tangled in your pubic hair, then that sounds like a show. Still, if it's during the day, I would like her to come and get checked or to talk to me about it. If it's during the night, then, she does, it's not an emergency if she can play with it like that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then, of course, a show can be 1,000 things. So that's blood coming out of her personal regions, running down her leg. I would like to know at 3 o'clock in the morning if her waters break. Waters breaking is not a normal thing in a healthy labor. Waters breaking, the amniotic sac in which the baby is housed is like a parachute, and it is full of water. And it is there, it's not water, obvious, but it is amniotic fluid. And that universe that the baby lives in is continuously supported. It is a whole atmosphere that when there is pressure exerted on the outside of that bubble of water, then the pressure is absorbed into the water and away from the baby. So the amniotic fluid, therefore, is there to protect the baby from the pressure of the contractions. The amniotic fluid there is to protect the baby from any kind of ascending infection. So the amniotic fluid we want to have intact in a normal low risk mum. Normally the waters might break as the mum is pushing the baby out in the second stage of labor. But the waters breaking without labor is never a normal thing. And she needs to therefore check 3 C's after that. I want to know if the waters break. First of all, there's 2 reasons. The most common reason is infection. She could have thrush, candida, any kind of infection in the vaginal urinary tract can cause the membrane to become friable, which means it tears more easily. And the baby had no intention of being born today, and that was an accident for everybody. And so we need to attend to that, and we cannot ignore that. Any kind of infection, if left, is going to ascend into the baby's environment and can therefore infect the baby. And we don't want the baby to be born with an infection, because that usually means a special care unit. So we have, if the waters break and there's no sign of labor, and of course we're looking at normal from 38 weeks onwards. We're not looking at premature. Premature, entirely different. Anything before 38 weeks is abnormal already. So anything before 37 completed weeks, phone the midwife anyway. But if the waters break without any sign of labor, that is not normal. It's either because of infection or it's because the baby's position. And that would be a posterior position, a deflex position, a baby who is not a navigator. And so again, needs help. So if the waters break and there is no sign of labor, I want to know, first of all, that there is no sign that the cord has been washed out with the water breaking. That is the most dramatic obstetric emergency that could ever take place, that the cord gets washed out of the mother's body. If the cord comes out of her body and comes in contact with the air, that is what causes the cord to stop pulsating. And if the cord stops pulsating, that is the baby's oxygen supply, and we have the worst calamity ever created. So if that were ever to happen, first of all, it was accidental. It's not because of labor. It's not a normal thing. It's happened because the baby is not deeply engaged, a premature situation. The baby is not blocking off the pelvis to the cord. And so usually the baby has not engaged yet. So we're looking at 36 weeks, 35 weeks, and anything before that. And if then the cord does get washed down, the mum needs to, what I tell my mums to do is kneel on the couch, put your hands on the floor, get your bum up over your shoulders, get your elbows down on the floor, and then phone the paramedic. like that. So you need to put the cord back in where it's going to be kept warm and moist in the vagina, continue pulsating, and then take the weight of the baby away from the exit of her body by getting her bum up over her shoulders. And she needs to stay like that until the paramedics can come and collect her and get her into hospital in that position. And it's only when the whole team is ready that we would lie her on the operating table, get her on her back, and get that child out. Toot sweet. So there is no getting up, standing up, getting in the car, nothing like that. Keep the baby away from the exit in your body and safe and sound. Cord continues to pulsate until we can rescue that baby. So if the waters break, then we want to know there's no cord involvement. And therefore, if the baby is moving in there and she's doing a kick chart, then the baby's getting oxygen and the baby's getting nutrition. And so there is no cord prolapse. The next
What?
C,
Sorry, Sharon.
cord,
Is
yeah,
there a percentage you could give us on when that actually happens? Because
well,
it's not
that's
very
lovely.
common at all.
No, it's not common at all, at all, at all. But if it ever were to happen, you could save your baby's life, and that's why it's worth mentioning. In
Absolutely.
my 39 years that I've been doing this, I've seen it once.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah,
good to
and
know.
it was because somebody was inducing somebody who didn't have a baby who was engaged. They were inducing somebody by breaking the waters in a hospital, high-tech hospital, hadn't happened naturally at home at all, and was breaking the waters in order to induce her with a high presenting part, and down came the cord. And so, of course, the treatment was somebody had to apply their pressure, hand in, keep the baby in, cord in, and rush her to theatre. And the outcome, of course, was, well, aren't you lucky that you were in hospital when that happened? But of course, if she hadn't been in hospital, it wouldn't have happened. So, yes, if we have
So
healthy
Sharon,
mums, then we've got healthy membranes and no infection. And that's what we're looking at during a healthy pregnancy, is reassuring that mum. And any sign of early infection is, of course, being treated.
Mm.
If
so
the water,
Sharon,
yeah,
sorry, Sharon. So would you
yeah,
say that, in that percentage of moms who do experience their waters breaking before contractions start, would you say
yeah.
it's in most cases it's more that the head is already engaged and putting pressure on those
Well, you
membranes?
see, the thing about 36 weeks is that that's when we expect the baby to engage. And when you are ticking those boxes, and we're looking at the week to week progression and development of a pregnancy, then we're ticking those boxes of the baby's in the pelvis, the cord's up here at the chest. Look, we can even show you on the scan. There's a perfusion through the cord. We show you all of those things, and the cord is in a safe place. So in actual fact, we don't care if it's round the neck or not, because that depends on how long the cord is. What we want to know is it's not coming before the baby's head or in
Mm.
front of the
Mm.
baby's head. And so, yeah, that's why you have all these people, oh, look, I've gone, caring for you throughout the pregnancy and reassuring you always there's no sign of infection. And this picture that I always have, oh, look there behind me, that's in the optimal fetal position. And when you've got a baby on the left like that, see how the baby's back is on the mother's left hand side, then we're going to rotate into an anterior position and not get all caught around in the posterior positions and have a deflex head and have the membranes rupture. So remember, in a normal labor situation, it is the baby who stimulates the labor. The baby knows when the stars are right in the sky for them to be born. And we're talking about a healthy baby. If we have a baby who is not well, then they're possibly not able to do that. And that's why there is a place for induction. But if we are dealing with low risk mums and healthy babies and no sign of infection and an anterior position like that, then the membranes are designed to stay intact, and we want a mum to push that baby out of her body and keep the membrane intact. So that is a baby born in the cowel, and that is all spiritual, cultural celebration of mysticism and wonder. So that's always good, a good cultural excitement when a baby is born in the cowel. In Scotland, it means that you won't drown at sea. And when you come from a nation of fishermen, then that's usually a good thing. Anyway, so that's the first C, is we want to know, is the cord safe in the body? So then we want to know, what is the color of the amniotic fluid? The next C, what is the color of the amniotic fluid? It should look like chicken soup. Chicken soup with no peas and carrots. Chicken soup can be that chicken soup with that scum, that white muck that you have with chicken soup. Can have that, because that would be the vernix that's come off the baby. It won't smell like chicken soup, and it won't smell like pee. And of course, we have to pause there, because if it smells like pee, then she hasn't been doing her pelvic floor exercises and she's now an incontinent woman. We can fix it later. She doesn't have to get all dramatically anxious about it, but that means she's just peed herself. So amniotic fluid smells like heaven. In actual
Heaven.
fact, when it is infected, it is the heavenly scent of a new baby, which is better, I think, than a new dolly. I don't know if you remember what a new dolly smells like and the wonder of that, but this is even better than that, when a new baby smell. So it smells to a first time mum like something she's never smelt in her life. And she would put a sanitary towel in her knickers, because women come into the hospital wearing black knickers and they want you to be able to see what is the color of the amniotic fluid. And of course, that's very difficult to do. So if she puts a pair of dry knickers on and a sanitary towel in her knickers, then we can see. Also, because it might start off as chicken soup and then become meconium stain. So we want to see the progression of the color also. We don't want it to be frank, bright green amniotic fluid, because that would mean that the baby has just felt distressed, that the baby has literally crapped themselves because something dramatic happened in that baby's life. They got the fright of their life, and that is fresh meconium. And so we want to see to that baby immediately. I would say to my mums, again, get your bum in the air, because that encourages the blood flow through the cord, keeps the oxygen supply to the baby high, and we can get you into hospital to find out, because we want to arrive in hospital suspecting a drama, managing a drama, and then being reassured, no, there's no need for drama here. Your baby is fine. Rather than, oh, nobody told me that the baby could be in distress. And so I did nothing about it. And, the baby was in distress. So the color could also be like pond water, brackish, brown color. And that would indicate that the baby has been in distress, that the amniotic fluid has dissolved that meconium some time ago. And so, because there was distress, and we didn't know because the amniotic fluid was still within and the amniotic sac was intact, perhaps she was out jogging in the park and some car backfires and she gets the fright of her life, or she's the kind of person who is having a plate throwing fight with her partner, or throwing words even at each other, and the baby gets the fright of their life because the amount of adrenaline that is pumping through the mum at that time. And that would indicate that if we've got old meconium, it would indicate that this is a little sensitive person, that if they couldn't manage that stress then, perhaps as the membrane has ruptured now, that's a new stress to the baby, and we want to know, are they okay? That's what we're calling the midwife for at 3 o'clock in the morning when you've got waters breaking, the cord is fine, the color is normal. Then we've got, because the channel is now open to infection, we've got 12 hours to get you into an established labor state from that moment before antibiotics need to be started. And of course, Lisa, you're going to tell us all about the impact of antibiotics on a baby and the microbiome and all of those things, and why we want to try to stay away from antibiotics affecting the baby at such an early time in a baby's life. And so we need to get all hands to the pump so that we can get that labor going and get that child out as soon as possible before we have to attend to the possibility of an infection happening and
But
rising
Sharon,
through into the amniotic sac. Lisa?
absolutely. Sorry.
Mm.
Should a mom go onto antibiotics? So she's at the 12 hours have passed, she's not in established labor, and so you put antibiotics up. Do those antibiotics cross that amniotic fluid? Well, the waters are broken. So does it cross into the baby through the umbilical cord?
No, it comes up through the vagina into the uterus.
No, the
So
antibiotics.
the baby, oh, do the antibiotics affect the baby? Well, you see, what we have to be looking at is what is the state of labor, because we could have waited 12 hours and we haven't even started labor, which means we've
Mhm.
still got another 12 hours, 24 hours to be working to get
Mm.
that baby out. And what we don't want to have happen is that that child arrives flat because of infection and ends up being resuscitated because of an infection that we ignored. And particularly if that infection is strep B, then that child ends up in the special care unit with all sorts of manner of antibiotics and other things. And, respiration is a problem. Everything can be highly dramatized because we didn't attend to something when it was fairly minor. Because even if you consider if we've got another 12 hours to get that labor
Mm.
going, then and we're giving antibiotics every 4 hours, then that child has had a good cover of antibiotic. And that mum didn't have to get rushed to theatre for a cesarean section. She could possibly still have a vaginal birth, which is still
Mm.
better for the baby and the mother, if we're managing it effectively and using the research to show that either all is well and all is safe. Because as soon as we start to determine that this baby is possibly becoming infected, of course, this is why we need to be in the hospital and we need to be monitoring a child who is in that kind of state, because it's the baby's pulse rate, the heart rate of the baby, that is telling us that either all is well or something is amiss and we need to pay
Mm.
attention to it. And because also, when we are in a maternity unit, we don't have a theatre running 24 hours a day, well, we do, but we have to call in the team to get it. And sometimes there can be an emergency around you, and somebody has to go to the theatre before you. And so, if we are all together and we're in the right place and we are in the maternity unit and we're monitoring the baby in such circumstance, and we're not just ignoring it, crossing our fingers, hoping all is well, then
Mm.
we've got a good opportunity to give a good amount of notice to the team that we've got a baby, membranes have been ruptured for 4 hours, membranes have been ruptured for 6 hours, we're possibly going to run into trouble, and everybody's ready for that, and then we don't need it. rather than the other way round, and the theatre is already occupied or something. That's just terribly dreadful, because then we end up not in the maternity unit. We end up having to go to a high-tech hospital to manage something that could have been managed better. So phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning was ever worried about the baby, blood, waters break, what is the color, where is the cord, and are there contractions? So I want to know, when you're calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I want you to tell me a whole story. I want you to tell me, oh, the contractions started last night and they were irregular, and I went to bed and I had some sleep and I woke up and they were much stronger, and I got in the bath to see if I relax. That's the purpose of getting into the bath. People think that midwives don't want to see you unless you're clean, which is hysterical. Yes, we want you to get into the bath because we want to see what effect does relaxation have on your body. And when you get into the bath, as a woman, you get into the bath and you think, oh, every woman does that. You get into the bath, oh, that feeling when you get into a bath means that you can now sink under the water. You're going to roll a towel behind your neck, you're going to fold a towel under your bum, and you're going to sink under the water. And you're not going to sit there looking at the clock and thinking, oh, here comes one. Oh, how long is that? Oh, when is the next one coming? No, you're just going to sink under the water, and you'll be able to identify if these contractions are spreading out and going away, or even just spreading out. Because if they're spreading out, now you can manage them differently. It means if they're spreading out, maybe you can get back to bed and have a little bit more sleep, because the modern woman cries all the time about how much sleep she's not getting. But if you can go and get some sleep, labor will wake you up. You don't have to sit and time it and watch it. It will wake you up. Try and sleep first of all. So if then you get into the bath and these contractions get clearer and more powerful and more regular, and they're pounding on like the waves on the beach, then you can celebrate that and think, well, hey, this is what I need to be paying attention to. And you've got all sorts of information to give your midwife. So that's the 3 C's then. If the waters break, where's the cord? What's the color? Are you contracting? And you want to give your midwife all of that information so that together we can have a conversation about what should we do now? I'm going to call the hospital anyway. I'm going to get you put on the board. And I want to know that that baby, your passenger, is safe and sound. And I don't want to just ignore it and tell you that I'm sure the baby is fine. Let's not have a listen in, because we need to have a listen in and see that the baby is fine. And so, of course, as we discussed before, if we're going into hospital, we're going to put her on the CTG machine, the cardiotachograph, otherwise known in South Africa as a non-stress test. I don't like calling it a non-stress test because it stresses the mother. It sometimes stresses the baby. It is not a non-stress test. It is a cardiotachograph, CTG, so that we can see what is the relationship between the fetal heart and the uterine power. And when the uterus powers up and has a contraction, how does that affect the baby? How is the baby affected by that? And are they managing that power, the squashiness of a contraction to the baby? Okay. Do they manage the squash, and then the squash goes off and they are back on track and they're recovering? And we want to see that. So, calling the midwife, there is another one, that you're in labor, so you're sure you're in labor. Contractions are every 5 minutes. They haven't just been every 5 minutes for 10 minutes. It has been a period of time. You have checked to see are they coming or going. Maybe they spread out in the bath and you got out of the bath, you couldn't sleep, but you maybe made your baby's birthday cake. Because if you're going to be upright and mobile in the kitchen and pottering around and listening to happy singing, dancing music, and the two of you are driving around the kitchen having a party, then of course being upright shakes that baby down into the pelvis even lower, and You can have a hallelujah moment because you're going to be 4 or 5 centimeters when you come into the hospital. So if we think about days gone by, women would have naturally stayed at home for as long as possible until they couldn't stand the power of the contractions any longer, and then they'd go into the hospital. But social media encourages women to go into the hospital because they've got backache or because they've got period pains or because they've had a contraction. And so they go in and the cervix is still closed or the cervix isn't defaced yet or there's not much going on. And then they get all confused and they thought they were in labor and now they're not in labor. They're told they're not in labor or they're in early labor or they're in the latent phase of labor. And that's just miserable. So if they know the baby is fine, they know because they're doing kick charts, the amniotic sac is intact, they are not leaking amniotic fluid, they are not bleeding in any way, and they are not in powerful labor, then they are safe to stay at home. But if they've got any of those things happening, then let's check rather and send you home knowing your baby is safe and there's nothing going on here, which really is very hard for a midwife to tell a mum that because she thought she was in labor and now she's going to go home thinking, but if that wasn't labor, how am I going to know when I'm in labor? And so she's going to be all worried instead of
Then they
look
tell
at
you
this.
afterwards, okay, so that was labor.
Yes, when they really do. Because every woman secretly thinks she's got a very high pain threshold. And although this might have folded her sister in half and taken her breath away, it's not going to happen to her because she's very powerful. And then so she has backache or she has a little or a powerful Braxton Hicks and she thinks, you see, this would buckle somebody else, but I'm a very powerful creature. And then when she has her first labor contraction and it folds her over in half and takes her breath away, she's gobsmacked. Oh, this is labor. Yes, and we all laugh at her thinking, yeah, this is labor. Welcome to labor land.
Now, Sharon, we've gone through all the, when to call the midwife, but I think we need to edge into the Caesar world. So next week we're going to be talking about what a Caesar looks like. But what are your indications to think, okay, we need to take this to theatre?
Lovely question. Do you know we've only got 5 minutes left? So there are 2 reasons why we need to have a cesarean section. Either because the baby is not managing, not the baby is not managing labor, but the baby is not managing. The baby is not showing signs of being extremely healthy. Something causing disturbance, concern regarding the baby. The other thing that something is affecting the mother. Sometimes a mother starts off perfectly well in her pregnancy, but her blood pressure goes haywire. She starts to get diseases of pregnancy, saying that her body is not managing and cannot manage her health and a pregnancy. So one of those has to give. So it's either the pregnancy has to give or her health has to give. And that's not okay in this modern world. So this is why we have a relationship with our most fabulous obstetricians, that we are hand in glove with. The scans are done, the bloods are done, the appointments are done, and the reassurance through the scanning machine is giving that mother wisdom and confidence, knowing that everything's on track. She has nothing to worry about. Or we're looking out for, you've got sugar in your pee today. And then we have a big confession time. Oh, well, I had Energade on the way here in the car, or I had orange juice with my lunch. And so in that case, I'm going to give her another opportunity and I will say to her, okay, so the next time I see you, I don't want to have sugar in your pee. So you have to think about what you're eating and you have to look at your diet. And if you've got sugar in your pee again, the next time I see you, I have to send you for a glucose tolerance test. because then we have to see, is this just that she's a crazy person who eats sweeties in the car when she's coming to see her midwife every time? Or can we clean it up? Or does she just have leaky kidneys, which is a common thing as well? And things slip through into the urine that shouldn't have been into the urine. And that cannot necessarily be a disease, it's just a normal thing. Or that we need to attend to something. And then, we're looking at, so if the glucose tolerance test comes back as normal, then again, we can all relax and know. So we've done the testing, this mum is safe again, we're back on track, and the baby is growing well. Because if, of course, the body is not managing, if the mother's body is not managing, the placenta is not managing, then it's much safer to end the pregnancy when the baby's in the best condition before the wheels fall off, so that we can all attend to a healthy baby and grow that child as much as possible, as soon as possible. And so with all the technology that we have today, we are in communication backwards and forwards, the obstetrician, the ultrasonographer, the midwife, to make sure that this mum is safe.
I love that you say we hand in glove with the medical world as well as obstetricians, because it does, when everybody comes together, we do get the best outcomes for moms. And I think this is where, we've just got to let those egos go out the window. It's about mom and baby. It's not about.
It's not that one
Sorry?
service is better than the other. It's that we all have this mum and this baby on our minds all the time. And as long as we can reassure her that everything is fine, her baby is growing well, and that everything is safe in this pregnancy, then she's going to enjoy herself. But as soon as something starts to go sideways, then we want to know that as early as possible so that we can manage it as best we possibly can.
Love it. Could you tell, in those last few weeks of pregnancy, do you kind of have an idea, okay, this mom's, I think we need to get the team on the side, just heads up that we may have a Caesar, or how do you gauge that? Or
not in the last weeks. If she has had a perfectly healthy pregnancy until 36 weeks, that's her major appointment with her obstetrician. And what, of course, we're really looking for is, because first-time mums usually go after their due date, and 7 days at least past her due date is completely normal for her still to be pregnant. And so we want to know at 36 weeks, what is the condition of this placenta? So that if she goes past her dates, we want to be able to reassure her that we're not going to be breathing down her neck, wanting to induce her, because this placenta is so healthy. And that's one of the reasons why my mom's raw diet is that we're not over calcifying, we're not eating junk and calcifying the placenta and causing it to pack up before it is its optimal time. We want it to be able to cruise through in a healthy way, so that when and if she goes past her due date, that we do not have something to be concerned about. Because if that placenta is past its sell-by date at 38 weeks and it's already going into decline, and she's eating junk, or she's still eating some sort of bad thing, don't say that, good, and if she's just not eating well and she's polluting her placenta, then of course we can't just cross our fingers and hope that labor will start and that everything will be okay. We want to be able to reassure mums, look at the health of this placenta. It's absolutely fabulous, and we've got nothing to be concerned about here.
And on a sonar, you can pick up the calcification?
Yes. So we can see vernix in the amniotic fluid. We can see the amount of amniotic fluid. We expect it to start to fall away, the amount of amniotic fluid. And the health and well-being. We can see a mature placenta compared with unhealthy placenta. And that is one of the things, when you put champion obstetrician, the mum has a champion obstetrician who is honest and clear and promoting vaginal birth and promoting her birth experience with her midwife, then you can trust him or her to tell you the truth about your placenta, because you hear from mums all the time that the baby was small, or 3.5 kilogram baby comes out in an elective section, or the placenta was packing up. And so that's why it's so important to choose your team so carefully at the beginning of your pregnancy. Put your team together. And that's another luxury that you have in South Africa that nobody else has in the world, that you can select your obstetrician, select your midwife, select your doula, and have this team of people around you who are buoying you up and supporting you with your choices, educating you to make the right choices for yourself, for your family, for your baby, and giving you the truth so that you can make informed decisions based on those truths, and not trying to pull the wool over your eyes because they're hoping to go on holiday, or because those of us who work this way never have a holiday. But those mums can know that if December is looming, that they're not going to be convinced that something bad is happening in the first 2 weeks of December because somebody's going away. Because, the special care units are packed in the second 2 weeks of December because we induced somebody, or we did cesarean sections with babies with immature lungs or wet lung, or all of those things. And so the person you're putting your faith in needs to have your back, really, is what we're saying.
And Sharon, next week perhaps we can also discuss what conditions you would start an induction, as opposed to,
I don't do induction. I don't believe in induction.
Because just from in a personal capacity, perhaps we could have this conversation. So I had two pregnancies where my waters broke before labor started. And so I did land up, even though especially with my fourth, I tried to jump on the trampoline to to get my labor going naturally, and but it didn't quite happen. And so I did land up going to the birthing clinic, where I did need antibiotics. But instead of being rushed off for a C-section because labor didn't start, I was induced with synthetic oxytocin to get things going, and I still, was able to birth my babies vaginally. And so I'm just interested to hear your perspective on that next week.
So I have so that kind of induction, yes, absolutely, we do that kind of induction. But I would have encouraged you both to go and get the natural form of oxytocin flowing, and I would have gone and stuck you in the shower together and encouraged you to use tongues and excitement and whatever made the baby in the first place, to get all that going so that you can get your oxytocin levels soaring and do it naturally. Because that synthetic oxytocin, that was possibly your most painful labor.
It really was. It was.
Yes. And as a fourth-time mum, we know that you can.
Yes. And it was my bookends, my first and my fourth. So that the fourth one, I was still able to have a beautiful water birth with with my fourth child. But the first one, because my body had just never done it before, and it was, slapped with this, this shock of this synthetic oxytocin, it really was a lot more painful. And had it not been for the support of my independent midwife, that's why I'm interested in the conversation next time, because we see a lot of inductions landing up in C-sections, because the inductions are done so aggressively, and those contractions can come so forcefully, one on top of the other, that both mom and baby land up not coping with the contractions of labor. And we do see a lot more C-sections coming out of an induction. So I'm really looking forward to having that discussion next week.
Method. Okay, good. Me too.
Yeah, I think, we'll do that. We'll talk about induction and C-sections, whether elective or emergency, or, maybe mom halfway through labor's decided I've had enough, and I think I want a C-section, even though there's no indications. So we'll discuss all of that next week and really get down to what is an emergency Caesar.
Because it's only in South Africa that you have that choice, that you can decide, look, I've tasted it, I don't like it, just take me to theatre. And we will. Yeah, that people don't have to be afraid that they're going to be bullied and pushed into something they don't want to do. But if they have been journaling and preparing and asking themselves what they might be afraid of, and they've worked it all out before labor, then we can avoid that.
Amazing. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. That was lovely. I know we've discussed a lot of the things we discussed today. We have spoken about before in other scenarios, but it's always nice to just get it out there again, reiterate. And the more you hear things, the more you understand them and work with them. So thank you, Sharon. That was really good. As always, we talk and it's an hour. So we're going to sign off, but we're going to see you next week, all about the inductions and Caesars. Blessings, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.